All right, welcome everybody. I am so excited to have our guests here today. Let me just welcome you to our Mommy and Me community wellness events. This is just a really great place where we're hoping to build community and add value to mommies' lives who are looking for answers in an alternative way of being, living, and raising their families. Now, our goal is just to come alongside families who want better health and options and just educate and be here to inspire and help you. Our guests today are Andie Wyrick and Jaelin Stickles from Holistic Heritage Home Birth, and I'm thrilled to have these ladies here. I have to tell you from my experience, I am a mom of 3. I used Midwives 30 something years ago now to have my children, and I thought I had a really good experience until I got to experience my daughter Kenna having her baby with these ladies. And I can tell you that all the groups of people that we work with and talk to, I never hear anything except great about these women. Our experience was fantastic. And sometimes you think you're really in a great experience until you find something else. And then you're like, oh yes, this is it. Everybody who's had babies with these ladies wants to have all their babies with these ladies. I can't tell you the kindness, the love, the fun, the compassion and passion that they have for creating an amazing birth experience. And it just makes me so excited to have them share with you today. So they are both certified nurse midwives. And instead of me telling you how they got here, I'd really just like you to hear straight from them, their journey to their practice that they have today. So Jaelin and Andie, you just take it away from there.
Okay.
Who goes first?
I do always go first. I'm such a hog and attention seeker. So yeah, I'll do it kind of quick because I could talk about this for 30 minutes. But really, I always knew I wanted to do birth, right? Even from the time I was little, like 4 or 5 years old, I had a dog named Bingo, and I used to climb in the doghouse with her when she'd have her puppies. And all my other siblings thought, ew, that's gross, it's icky things coming out. And I just thought it was the most glorious thing I'd ever seen in all my life. And I never thought for a minute that it was anything but that. I probably wasn't helpful at the time, but I sure thought I was, right? I was at least loving on her. And that just grew over time. And then in high school, I found out that there was actually a career where I could be around pregnant people, birth, breastfeeding forever. Still nobody told me there was a word midwife. They'd only told me obstetrics. So that's what I did. I actually went to school to be an OB-GYN. But my husband, y'all, he's really, really cute. And I met him way back when, and I got pregnant at prom. So it kind of interfered a little bit in what my plans were for school to be an OB. Had my son in the hospital, still thinking that's what you're supposed to do. I just really didn't have any other ideas on the matter because that's what culture taught me. You go into the hospital and you have your baby. And when I got there, it was not good. It was very traumatic. It was probably one of the worst experiences in my life. I was both physically and verbally abused by my doctor. And 22 years later, I'm not over it. It still hurts my heart. And honestly, it's affected my son. It makes him sad when he hears this story. So because of that experience, I didn't want to be an OB anymore because I didn't want to be part of that community that hurt me. But my nurses were great and they were loving and people, and they were honoring me as a mom. And that's what I wanted to do. I really just wanted to love people. So I became a nurse instead, went and got my bachelor's degree and went straight into the hospital doing labor and delivery thinking, oh, I'm gonna love that because I get to be with the women and I get to support them. And then I got into the hospital system just knowing I'd love it, and I didn't. It was kind of icky. And this was in the early 2000s when I first was a nurse. It was very policy driven, litigation based, turn and burn, kind of like when I was waiting tables, like how quick can we get a room clean for the next number to come in? Definitely not the love I wanted. And I just felt every time I left, like I was disservicing families instead of loving them, and I didn't like it. So one night, about 3 years into being a nurse, a midwife brought in a client on a non-emergent transport from a home birth, and the mother wanted an epidural. Happened to be pregnant with my third child at the time, and I was like this. I was so envious, first off, because that's what I always wanted for myself. And that's what my babies deserved. This beautiful relationship where they didn't even have to talk to each other. They just got it. And it was like this lovely dance. It was so orchestrated in the communication and the nurturing and the knowledge in the room. I was really impressed. Hired that midwife on the spot, and she caught my next 3 babies at home. Her name's Pat Jones, and she's my hero and mentor. And then I ended up quitting my job right then, put in my 2-week notice, and I followed Pat and did home birth for the next 10 years, learning everything I could about midwifery and options for families. Pat's the one that convinced me to go back to school, got my master's degree. That's our little alphabet soup at the end of our name. We were nurses who became, who got our master's degrees and then became midwives. So that's the kind of journey as far as school goes. I did work at a birth center for a little while right after I graduated, and it was beautiful, great things happening in birth centers with midwives. But that was not my goal. My goal was really to open up avenues and options for families that couldn't have home birth in Houston, because it's really a small community. Most CNMs don't work in home births, less than 1% of us. So I wanted to create that option. The coolest part of the birth center I worked for is I got to meet Jaelin, and I had her fall madly in love with me. And I said, come on, come see a home birth. You're going to love it. It's the cat's meow. And she did. And she never looked back. And then we opened our little practice, Holistic Heritage Home Birth. And it's been exactly what our heart needed. And we just feel honored and pleased every day that we get to hold hands with creation.
Okay, I cannot hear you even talk without tearing up. Who's with me here? It's so beautiful and passionate. See, Kenna says she has chills too. Okay, I that's what I love about you guys. I think that's you bring so much value to the world, really. But this beautiful passion and heart that you ladies have, and talk about dance. Now we're gonna hear from Jaelin. These ladies dance together and they're in sync perfectly. They're perfect counterparts and complements to each other. So Jaelin, you want to share your little journey into midwifery or home birth, actually, not midwifery necessarily.
Sure. So I'm Jaelin, y'all. I came into it very differently. I probably had a pretty skewed view of the medical world. So I had a lot of distrust in it in general from a very young age due to family things. But what I didn't realize was I went in, when I had my babies, I went into it knowing that I was going to have unmedicated births with the least amount of interventions. And it wasn't even a question in my mind. That's what I was going to do. Women been having babies for thousands and thousands of years. We have populated the earth. They did it really well before medical management came in. And if all of those women who came before me could do it, then why couldn't I? And that's how I went into my births. Confident in my abilities as a woman, confident in my abilities that my body was created to grow and birth babies. I didn't realize people didn't think this way. So I actually had really great births. I had hospital births. I didn't know about midwives. Had I known, y'all, I would have had a home birth because I like to do things my way. And I don't like people telling me what to do. So, but I did have great births. I was really lucky that I picked the right guy. He protected my environment. And if I said no, it was no. Nobody touched me without my permission. And my husband really supported that. So I had really great births. I brought my children into the world in this loving embrace of my arms, my husband's arms. And I knew that at some point in my life, I was going to be involved in birth. I didn't know how that was going to look because I had all my babies at once, 3 babies in just under 4 years. So I was a little busy raising my kids. So when my youngest got to high school, I decided I would go back to school and become a nurse, and very much like Andie, labor and delivery, and hated it once I got there. It was I was appalled at what was happening in the hospitals, y'all. And you think it's bad now. It's worse now than it was then. I mean, women coming into the hospital, not given options, told what to do, kind of bossed around, their autonomy not respected or even asked for. I was blown away and my heart hurt. I didn't fit in because I'm the only one there saying, do you know you could say no to these things? So it wasn't a great experience for me. And it was heartbreaking, to be honest with you. But then I met this wonderful midwife. Her name was Melanie Dossie, and she was the original owner of Nativity Birth Center. And she invited me into her space. And I got to see my first out of hospital birth. And really, literally, y'all, it was like the skies opened, the light shone down on me and said, you're going to be a midwife. And that's what I did. I went back to school. I got my master's degree and I got to join this beautiful profession, and I get to walk this journey with women, which is my passion, to walk this journey and to listen to you and to give you exactly what you want, like you should have, every woman should have. That's my journey.
Man, okay. I don't know why this whole subject makes me so emotional, but it really does. I loved what you said about I don't like to be told what to do, giving birth my way, you know, and that's exactly how I felt. Let me tell you, my trauma was not as bad as a lot of people's. Mine was in high school when they showed that birth video where the woman is just screaming uncontrollably, and there was nothing dignified about it at all. There was no dignity to it. There was no control. And I watched that in high school. First of all, I thought, I don't want to have a baby. But then when I decided, yes, I'm going to have a baby, then I had to quickly learn. And this was like 36 years ago. So there was only libraries back then. We didn't have something like this where you guys could come in and just share. And so from here, there's a couple of subjects that I think are really important. And one is just, you can have your baby at home. It is perfectly okay. It's natural, it's safe. Mm-hmm. And what that looks like and how you guys can share your vision and journey with that. How many babies are you guys helping birth these days? I know it's a lot. And then the second half that I want to get into is this is an option, especially today, because I've heard a lot of horrible things about women thinking their husbands are going to be with them or their mothers, their support team, and they're walking into hospitals and they're not letting them be with them through this entire birth. And that's not what they're expecting. And I think I would be very traumatized and very scared and very unsure of what was going to happen to me, or what it would just spin you off into this whole other emotional realm, on top of the fact that you're in a whole nother emotional realm giving birth, right? And so if you guys can share, because I know people are interested in midwifery, but a little afraid at home birth and a little afraid, but also people need to know there's options when they're having even less options today.
Right. So first you have to kind of know the history of how we got to this. How did we get to this problem? Because it's really a problem. It's a medical problem where we're at now. And birth had always been really a female-centered arena. The attendants were all women, and then you were surrounded by the people of your village or your community, your mom, your grandma, your sisters, your friends. It wasn't really, even the papas weren't invited in until after the 1940s, even 1960s, honestly. But it wasn't until the medical model figured out that there was some money to be made with obstetrics. And in 1938, we went from having less than 3% of women in hospitals to over half in hospitals. And then within 20 years, almost all in hospitals. And that's right about when the 60s and 70s came and we started burning our bras and there was a big female movement of power. And we said, hell no, we're not doing that. And it turned into like Lamaze, and dads actually used to have to get a card to be able to come into the delivery room with their wife. And there were midwives and more hippie nurses, just giving cards out so that you could have a support person, or else you were alone. And it was a time of twilight sleep and really horror for women until we found our voice. And then we started being silenced again. In the last probably 20, 30 years, we've had you know, tape put over our mouth. And it's not until these last few years that we've said, no, we're not, you know, it's kind of a resurgence into what happened in the 60s and 70s with the women's movement, that we're saying, no, this isn't okay. We demand, and literally that's what you have to do. We demand better for ourselves, better for our babies, better for our families. And we know that outcomes with midwives for low risk women are better. So that's where we're at now. And we're just going to have to keep being vocal, putting it out there, because mainstream media does not really talk about midwifery. It does not really talk about the options. It's really scare tactics, myths, because drama sells, and drama is more interesting. Boring is not interesting, but boy, is it beautiful. And with midwifery, you tend to get boring, but it's so gorgeous, right? So yeah, we're just inundated with media. Your water breaks, this has to happen. Oh no, beep, 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 beep. And that's just not reality. That reality is actually created.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and
Go ahead, Jaelin.
I think that we've isolated ourselves so much around birth and families. I mean, they're really isolating us now during times of COVID, but even before that, limiting who can come in the room, who can support you. And when we don't have our tribe, our team around us, it is hard to stand up for ourselves and what we want. When you're there all alone, it's not your job to be defending what you want. It's your job to labor and have a baby, right? Not to have to go in there and fight and say, no, I don't want this, and no, I don't want that. You should be able to just labor and birth your baby in the safest, most loving environment that you can. And that's where your team comes in. Your team's got to be strong enough behind you that can fight that fight for you, so you can just do the job, which isn't really happening in the hospitals too much. I don't know when we started kidnapping people in the hospital, but that's really what I think of it as women are kidnapped and they're run over, and they're not really given the choices that they're allowed to have, that they should have, that they deserve.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt. Y'all are on a roll. I'll just let you keep going.
Because so many people don't understand that there's different models of care. So you don't just look at it as everybody's receiving the same thing, because the models are very different. So with the midwifery model that most people aren't familiar with, it is a partnership. It's a trusting relationship, really built on love. And we're going to be educating you. We're going to be filling you with lots of resources that are evidence-based and more current, not, you know, rich with all this folklore and, oh, well, that's what we always did. Well, just because that's what we always did doesn't mean it's the best thing for us to do. And then in the end, whether it's evidence-based or not, whatever the client decides, that's the right decision for her, because there's so many aspects to decision-making. We give the information, you make the decision, we support it. That's our job. It's a relationship and not a dictatorship. And that really gets lost in the model. Whereas the medical model, because they really are taking ownership of your health care, because there's so much policy and so much litigation within the medical model that they have to. Well, have to is kind of harsh, but they feel like they have to. And it's more of a dictatorship, and it's more of a, you should do this. I'm the one that's most intelligent in the situation. I'm the one that went to school. This is my recommendation. And then sometimes when you don't make the recommendation, you're coerced into making a decision, which isn't fair at all. And the midwifery model just really believes that pregnancy is a state of health. You're not sick, you're pregnant. And that you were created in this perfect way to have a baby. So we really believe in that down to our core, whereas the medical model looks at pregnancy more as an illness and a problem to be solved. And neither one is really right or wrong. You just need to know that there are the options of both. And sometimes you are in a predicament where you do need a medical model. You do have issues that make you not low risk, and that's okay. But the majority of people having babies are low risk. And when you go see somebody whose specialty is high risk and surgery, you're going to be treated as such, if that makes any sense.
Exactly. And so I'm just going to go with a couple of comments here. First of all, Kenna said, and this speaks to what you're saying, Andie, that most women don't know that they have a choice to say no. And then there's the white coat, right? So education is key. You do have options. And I think something that's real important to say here too is reiterate what you said. Whatever the choice is in the end that you make, it's your choice to make and it's okay. But you get to make that choice. You deserve to make that choice. You get to be empowered and educated and do with your birth exactly what you want to do, no matter which way you choose. Or like the one mother, she decided she wanted to go to the hospital and have an epidural. There's no judgment here. It's okay. It's just that you get to choose, and that's about empowerment. And then Miranda said, can someone that was considered high risk, not because of baby, but themselves, be able to do a home birth? She had a complication with natural birth of her daughter, none other than she had a tear and got stitches, but had the worst experience with the nurse yelling at her and prying her legs apart while she was having a contraction. I'm sorry, Miranda.
That's terrible. I wouldn't consider her high risk at all. So that's a good thing to be looking at, is what makes you high risk and what makes you low risk. What we're looking for in midwifery care, and there's two factors for being safe for home birth, mom and baby, right? So baby's got to be healthy for home birth, and so does mom. Things that risk you out are if you are a diabetic on insulin, that's a little bit riskier for moms. If you have heart conditions, if you have clotting conditions, where you have issues that you could really lose a lot of blood, the hospital's safer for you. Doesn't mean you can't have a natural unmedicated birth in the hospital though, if that's what you want. So those are the types of things that kind of risk you out of a home birth. Most women are low risk. It's not your age. That doesn't make you high risk. It's not how many children you have. It's really your state of health. Most women who are getting pregnant are in a healthy state. That's why they're getting pregnant and having fun. Otherwise, they wouldn't be getting pregnant.
I love you guys. Do you have anything to say about that, Andie? Anything to add?
I actually forgot the question because my children started
Okay.
training behind me.
That's what I love about this. It was just about whether you're truly high risk or not. And
Oh yeah, there's a lot of times because of insurance, it pays more to say you're high risk. So these things like advanced maternal age, geriatric age at age 35, which is really, that's just a number. We need to look at, are we healthy or not, really not the number. They'll put that as high risk because you're 35 years old. What if you're an Olympic athlete? I'm pretty sure you're okay to have a baby, right? So they put the, or if you've done in vitro, you're automatically high risk. Why? Because the semen got in a different way? It just doesn't make any sense. So you've got to look at the big picture of why are we high risk? Some women are. Most women aren't, even though they've been told that, or even though you were high risk in an initial pregnancy. Like my first pregnancy, I was told I was high risk because I had preeclampsia. I did not have preeclampsia. I had high blood pressure one time because I was traumatized. But that's what they told me because that pays more. And then I thought, oh, I'm high risk. And it wasn't until I got into midwifery care that they're like, well, that was just one time. Just because that happened one time doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. And you're quite healthy and you're very low risk. And look at 3 beautiful, perfect home births in the water. And they were so empowering and so healing for me afterwards. And I really became a better mother. I became a midwife because of them. Like my whole universe changed after my home births. So it's much more than your health. It's really, that's why we named ourselves Holistic Heritage, because first off, it's a heritage. This is what it's always been. Birth in the hospital is the trend. That's the trend. Home birth is what it always was. This isn't new. And then holistic, because our health is not what's your blood pressure, how are you doing physically? It's a big giant picture of your emotions and your psyche and your spirit, and all of those things mixed all together bake that big human cake. It's not just one part.
Absolutely. So basically what you're saying is you get a different like little code for the insurance company and that pays more. That's really a shame.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And some of the things that they do, like a lot of times people say they never talk to us about diet, nutrition, and pregnancy. Your OB does it. Well, that's our first conversation with you. I'm about to go do a new OB and we're going to have that conversation. They're sitting out there. So nutrition is hugely important. But it's really not in most obstetricians' best interest to talk to you about nutrition because they really get to code you differently if you gain too much weight. So they don't care. Oh, now you're high risk. They get paid more because you gained 10 pounds extra. So it's not really a fair assessment. I did want to address Nikki about her amniotic fluid index. I don't know if y'all know what that means, but your baby has amniotic fluid. They're floating around and it always decreases the further along in pregnancy you get. It's one of the reasons now they're using for induction. Oh, your amniotic fluid's low. Typically when I see those reports later on and they're showing it's not low. It's fine, but the doctor's calling it low, so then they can induce you. So that's not a really reason to get an induction or a C-section, Nikki. And on that note too, what a lot of people don't realize is your body keeps making amniotic fluid over and over. So all you really need to do is go home and drink a lot. Then go do the test again if you want to. Hey, check my fluid today. And it's probably going to be a little bit higher. So it's not a great reason for induction. Typically low is considered less than 5, but usually around 40, 41 weeks, 42 weeks, you're at 5 or 6, and that's pretty normal right then.
So the other things, oh, go ahead. No, please. I don't want to, you're on a roll. Go ahead.
Said something about the baby flipping. I'm assuming
Okay.
you're meaning breech, Nikki?
By the way, breech is not a reason not to be able to have a natural birth.
No, it's really hard in Houston Hospital to get it. There's only one hospital doing breech deliveries, and that's Ben Taub.
Oh, wow. What about for home birth?
Yeah, we'll do them.
Okay, I thought so.
I see what she's saying. She's saying there wasn't enough fluid, so they couldn't get the baby to flip. That's what she's saying. So she had an emergency C-section. Really, there was never an emergency. They could have taken their time. Even if you had to have a C-section, I would be willing to bet 99% of C-sections aren't true emergencies. Sometimes they do have to happen, but not in an emergency way that feels scary and huge.
And even the research shows, even if you're going in for a C-section for a breech, it's really good to go into labor. It's really good hormonally to go into labor, have those surges. It's good for your baby. It's good for your body. It's good for you to dilate already. And that way for your next baby that you're going to have, you can have that baby vaginally and you've already gone through all those processes of labor. And again, it's better for your baby to go into labor and not just go in, because typically they want to just cut you at 39 weeks and avoid labor altogether. Go into labor.
Nikki brings up a good point, though. She was told she had to. And that goes back to what Kenna said originally. A lot of people don't know that they don't have to. Even with Kenna at one point, they were only going to let her, she did use a midwife, but it was a hospital birth with her first child. And they said she had to be induced no later than this date and time. And I said, what if you don't? Like, what if you don't show up? What if you don't go? Like, what's going to happen? It'll be okay.
We've all been indoctrinated with that language. And really, Jaelin and I work hard, especially people who've already had a medical model birth, to unpack that. Because we'll hear all the time, oh, well, they let me walk around. Well, they didn't let you do anything. Get up and walk around. It's your body. They don't own you when you walk through the door. So we have to release ourselves of those words. I was allowed. They let me. They made me. Absolutely not. You are you. You own you. You have the right to say yes, no, get up and leave. You can do whatever you want. You are the consumer. You hired them. They didn't hire you. They're not paying you. You're paying for this service that you hate, that makes you feel like you're handcuffed. And it's unfair because it's all done under this umbrella of fear. If you don't do what we say, we're going to call CPS. If you don't do what we say, you could harm your baby and your baby can die. Well, that's not informed consent. That's coercion. And it's unlawful, quite honestly. I'm getting a little upset here.
I know. But you know what? You reminded me. I had CPS threatened to be called on me when I had my first child. I had midwives, but it was in a hospital. It was an amazing, they were amazing. They protected me. They let me go all the way through. It was like 28 hours later, which was great. but after she was born, she got jaundice, which is normal. And I wanted to go home and nurse her and sit in the window. And they threatened to call CPS on me. And I was young, I was 19. So they took me through the neonatal unit and told me, see how scary this is. This is what you're risking, which is not even true. Isn't that amazing? It's so sad. But that's why we're here. And I think this conversation about medical freedom and choices is more important than it's ever been. So education, education, education. Okay, I know you're gonna have to go, Jaelin. So what I want to switch gears just real quick, and if you can stay, great. And if you have to go, I understand. But I just want to describe. Tell me, either of you or one of you or both of you, tell me one of your favorite home birth stories and why, so people can see that side too, like that beautiful picture of what that looks like.
Oh gosh, my favorite. Cheese and bread. So many. I would have to say my favorite would be mine. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. It would have to be my first home birth. It was with my daughter, Camden. I had gone through a really rough year with my relationship, and I needed to find myself again. And I really did through birth. And it was, again, my first exposure to midwifery care. So, you know, in your head, you fantasize about how beautiful you're going to be, and you're going to be like Aphrodite, the goddess of all things. And, you know, people are going to paint pictures of you because how lovely you were, and candles are going to be lit, and the angels are going to sing. A bolt of a rainbow is going to come through the window, and it's all going to be glorious because that's what you fantasized. My hair was going to be just right. I was going to have chapstick on and a perfect birthing necklace and just all the things. I even bought a white gown, y'all. I was going to be a Greek birth goddess. And then the great part about birth is that it doesn't have to be what you thought it was going to be, but it can be just as lovely, right? So what ended up happening was, as typically midwives do, we're like the silliest of all birthing women. And I ended up punching my own self in the forehead, just really nonsensical, silly me. And then I remember saying, oh my gosh, the baby's gonna come out. But then I didn't trust myself because I had been taught, don't trust yourself. I'll tell you when the baby's gonna come out. So I didn't listen to my inner dialogue saying, Andie, your baby's head is like right there. And I wanted a water birth. That was my dream. I'm going to have birth in the water, and I'm going to give birth to a little mermaid, and she's going to be so peaceful because the water said so. And so instead, I didn't listen to myself, right? And it wasn't until I'm just like, there's no way it's anything else except my baby's head. And I looked at my midwife and husband, I said, she's coming. And they just smiled at me because it wasn't an emergency, right? But I got up, and when I got up, her head came out of my vagina. And then I wobbled, and I turned over my shoulder and looked at my husband. I said, no, literally, she's coming. And I got into my bathtub just barely because I get my way. And my way was going to be a water birth, and it was going to be beautiful, damn it. And I got in, I turned the water on, and in that much water, my husband reached down and he caught our first daughter. And it was my first exposure to, this is normal and my body can do this. And I didn't have to be told to push, and I didn't have to be told, oh, it's time, put your legs up. No, I looked at him, I said, my baby's coming. And then I listened to my body. And of course it wasn't in a full tub of water, but we don't tell her that. It was a water birth. And it wasn't candles, and it wasn't a white gown, and it wasn't a rainbow coming through and cherubs and all these things, you know, but it was the most perfect birth for me. And I was a birth phoenix at that moment because I was reborn through her birth. And the way she came into this earth on her own terms, trailblazing, and her deciding her journey, it's exactly how she lives her life. Yes, her name's Camden, and she does whatever the hell she wants to do because that's what she did at birth. And we all just believed in it. And that's probably my favorite birth, just because it taught me so much about unpacking the untruths that we were taught. And then it also taught me how to be a better midwife, because birth looks all different. Even though you expect it to look this way, sometimes it looks this way. And that is really gorgeous sometimes. The unplanned sometimes is the most beautiful.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. So sadly, Jaelin had to go because she's got to go take care of a mommy.
Yeah,
I am so grateful. Are you cool with us opening up for a couple of questions or comments? And I will tell you, Nikki,
Yeah.
it is not too late. Nikki is expecting. You can change your mind about the birth you've decided at any time. So,
yeah.
you know, if you want to change up what you got going on, you definitely can. It's still okay. And I highly recommend you give birth. I think Aria was the first baby born in this neighborhood at home, right here with these ladies. So I highly recommend these ladies.
That's
100%.
cool. Marley said she had her baby at Nativity. That's actually the birth center that Jaelin and I worked at before we decided to do home birth. I was there 4 or 5 years ago, and Jaelin was there maybe 7. So we just missed you.
No, so I actually met y'all. I only met you once, but whenever I went into labor, you were actually the only midwife available at the time. So you met us there. But then I think you had something, like there was some sort of transition.
I see.
And Jaelin was actually who I met with most of my appointments.
I see.
So
was that 10 years ago? I'm old.
No. Sorry. That's my mom's story. That was whenever 10 years ago was my youngest sister was born at Nativity 10 years ago. And my mom had the typical horrible hospital birth situations. And what's crazy is that they were with doctors that she worked with because she was an OB nurse. And they still, but like she had to tell her own doctor and said, no, you're not inducing me because you're running late for a party, because that's what it was.
So fair. You know, I ended up going back to school. I always said, I'm never going back to school. I'm done with school, burn my books. And then what did I do? I went and I just got my doctorate in June because I hear that story over and over and over again, and birth and trauma in birth. And, you know, it's over 60% of women who seek out midwifery care are victims of sexual abuse or sexual violence. And that triggers a lot of things in birth. So between our birth trauma, which is over 70%, and then women who are having sexual violence in their life, which is 66%, in some avenue, we've all had some sort of trauma, and birth is the triggering for that. So that's what I ended up getting my doctorate in, because we hear that story, what you just told us, over and over and over again. It's unfair, and I'm sick of it. We've got to stop that. We've got to find our voice.
You guys are changing things, and that's why we wanted you here today, is to give that voice to these women so that they can choose. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah. That's
okay. Aubrey said hi, and I know she just had a baby with you guys recently.
Hello, Aubrey.
That's on Facebook. She said hi. Her Nicole said hi. Hey, ladies, I'm so glad you're here. Okay. So does anybody else have any questions? Just so you guys know, if you're on Facebook or on Zoom, say hi, give these ladies some love. They took their time to be here with you today. We're so grateful for that. So make sure that you say hi, give them some love, share this video. You can do a watch party. We also will have it on YouTube so you can share it later. Make sure to share so that every woman out there who wants to have a voice and wants to learn that they have a choice can. So important that we share this message. And you must comment to get your giveaway. Yes, somebody said something.
Sorry, Alicia, I was just going to say real quick, I thought everything you guys said was amazing. I had a home birth, my first home birth, when I was 42. So my daughter's 9 now. But what you guys are doing is awesome. I've got one grandchild she had a home birth. And the other one is getting ready to have a home birth. She just switched from hospital home birth. So just thank you so much.
Yeah.
There's 42 when she had her baby at home. Normally that'd be high risk for any other situation.
And you should have seen the people. They were like, oh, you should do that. You're too old, this blah, blah, blah. I mean, I was fighting it on my own.
Yeah. And we didn't get to talk very much about the climate of COVID, and I'm sure we're all really sick of it, honestly. COVID, like we're sick of the name, the mask, like we're exhausted of it, but it's still here, and we have to validate that some people feel a certain way and some people feel another way, and that's all okay. We just have to love each other through it. But the climate of the hospital, with this, because again, it's policy and litigation based, is yes, you're having to wear a mask in labor. Yes, every time someone comes in the room, they're going to be fully gowned with PPE. So your baby's going to be meeting like a spaceman kind of, which is what they have to do. I don't blame the personnel within the hospitals. I mean, even some of our birth assistants work in hospitals, and when they tell us some of these things, I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? They're saying that testing is, hold on a second. Canyon, baby. Canyon. Sorry, we got 4 conversations going on. They're saying testing is mandatory. Testing is not mandatory. Then they're saying if you don't test, they're going to take your baby from you. Absolutely not. They cannot take your baby from you. That is medical kidnapping. Tell them no and get your baby and leave. If you have to leave, leave and go to another hospital. They do not own you. And then there are some anesthesiologists saying, if you don't get tested, we don't know your status, so you can't have an epidural. That is also unethical, and you can sue for that. That is, they're saying, oh, well, that is a, oh gosh, what's it called? You don't have to have an epidural. It's, I can't think of it, like plastic surgery, or what is it called? Gosh dog it. Non-elective, it's elective. An epidural is an elective procedure. It is not. If you go to the hospital and you want to have pain control, you're not electing to be pregnant. So thus the pain control for that pregnancy and birth is not elective. And you want an epidural and they won't give it to you because you didn't test? Absolutely not. You get an advocate, you call somebody. That's just them trying to control the situation and coerce you into getting tested. Now, if you want to test, lovely, test. That's your option. But guess what? Not testing, also your option. They cannot take your baby. They cannot hold back pain medication for you. They cannot do anything to you. You, you own your baby, not the other way around.
The easiest thing to do is just call Nikki. Nikki. I'm talking to Nikki. I wasn't going to say her name. I'm talking to you, Nikki. Call Jaelin and Andie. Get a consultation with them. Talk to them. Because for me, I'd rather go the easier route than fight in the hospital. I'd rather be in my own home in a space where I feel comfortable and not have to make those choices. It's already giving you anxiety and you're not even there yet. And I feel awful about that.
And they really prey on the vulnerability of where you're at, because here's the truth. We all make the best decisions we can with the information we're given at any one time as a parent, out of love for our child and protection for them. So it's not that parents are making bad decisions. They're making the best decision they know how to make in the moment, which is unfortunate because we're being fed garbage.
Yeah, that's why my daughter she was having a hospital birth with midwives, but because she found out all the stuff that would go on, she just changed to a midwife, and the midwife is more than happy to help her and start with her now. She's like 30-some weeks.
Yep, it's not
Beautiful.
too late.
It's never too late. It's never too late.
Okay, we're gonna have to let this lady go because she does have a life beyond us. So, but I want to make sure that we get a couple things covered real quick.
Yeah.
First of all, I do want Kenna to be able to share a little bit of her experience because she's here and she did give birth with you guys. And second of all, there's an important question here. What would your advice be for someone who experienced what they feel is a traumatic midwifery birth and doesn't know why they were transferred or why maneuvers were not attempted first?
So first, I don't know the circumstances. So first off, I just validate you. If you felt it, it's your truth. I would recommend, if you feel safe enough, to actually talk to the midwife about it. Ask for your records. If you don't already have access to, all of our clients have their records. They're their records, not ours, right? But ask for the records, read through it. Maybe find another midwife that you feel safe and confident with, and maybe they have the time to go over and explain it. That would be fine. But what I do want to say is, I don't stand here as a woman saying, because I'm a midwife, I'm perfect. Because I'm not. I'm just a human like everybody else. And I do try to make the best decisions, but every now and again, because I'm human, I have faults. And I'm sure that in my time as a nurse and as a midwife, I have disappointed people. I hope and pray that I've never traumatized anybody. But I would hope they'd come to me so that we can talk about it and that I could grow from it. The other thing is, if you do have trauma, seek help. because that's going to follow you for the rest of your life. And I'm still dealing with trauma for 22 years and just now really starting to heal from it. And you deserve to release that. You don't need to carry that heavy weight. So maybe a red tent would be nice. If you've never gone to a red tent, it's a time of birth storytelling and just kind of releasing it through tear or releasing it through voice, letting other women in the room hear your story and validate the way you're feeling. It's really powerful. We hold red tents all the time and they're open to the community. It's a free time of sisterhood. And I'd be happy to look at it. I'd be happy to hear your story and maybe I can help you understand some of the things and why you got transferred. The other thing is different midwives with that alphabet soup that I really do not care about. But unfortunately, the United States gives us different initials, different rules. So for us, for Jaelin and I, we can do different things within our scope than other midwives that have different initials. So it may have just been out of her scope. Even if it wasn't an emergency, maybe they're only allowed to catch babies at 37 weeks, where we can catch babies at 36 weeks. And I don't know exactly what happened with you, but it could have been something like that. And then just, I don't want to say, you know, forgive somebody because maybe you're not ready for that. But to have grace and humanity, and that sometimes we make bad decisions because we're frightened, or sometimes we make bad decisions and we thought they were the right thing. And then in hindsight, we go, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But we're all just human. And I'd be happy to talk that through with you if you want to message me. I'm Andie Wyrick on Facebook, or you can also email me.
Wonderful. Now, I do want you to share. And
if it's okay, I would love, first of all, everybody and their mom and anybody who's on Facebook knows how much I love Jaelin and Andie, because every single time somebody asks for a recommendation, I'm very quick to hop on there and tell everybody about them. But I know that like Andie might want to go. Would it be okay with everybody if I did the giveaway really quick, and then anybody who wants to stay after, we could do birth stories? Would that be okay?
Oh, that's a great idea. And Andie, well, is that okay? First of all,
Me?
Is that what you're asking, Kenna? Is it okay with Andie?
Yeah, is everybody okay with that? That way, if Andie needs
Sure.
to go, she can go.
That's a great idea. But I also, while you're doing that, Andie, would you go ahead and list some? You guys do a lot of community service events. You have a lot of things at your place. Do you want to share those real quick too?
Sure. We do red tents. We're going to start doing those again probably soon. We weren't allowed to have more than 6 people in the space, but now we maybe start doing virtual red tents. We're also going to start blue tents, which is never been done before. But I think that the partner in the room and the parent in the room and whoever it was, your support person, has a voice too. And sometimes they are traumatized and they need to tell about their story, or sometimes they were empowered and they want to tell their story. So it's red tent for the birther, blue tent for the supporter, partner, father, whoever was in the space with you. We also do blessing ways. It's probably my most favorite thing we do. Typically it's for our client, but honestly, I don't care who comes. If you needed some love and you want me to rub your feet and tell you how beautiful and awesome and great you are, come get loved on. That's just a time of sisterhood where we really just commit to each other that we're in this journey together and we're going to walk it step by step. And we create a little web there of empowerment. And we spend the time preaching truth and affirmation over each other that's going to lead us into our labor and our birth and our postpartum, because so much is spent on the baby and a baby shower, and we lose the mom. We lose the mom in the recipe. So this is just a time to focus on mama. And we do, oh gosh, we just do all kinds of stuff. We're about to have our 3rd birthday, and that's going to be a blowout. We're really pumped about that. We do hypnobirthing classes. That's phenomenal. Jaelin leads those. We do postpartum meetups the first Wednesday of the month, and that's great. Right now we're just on social media and really they're getting together doing play dates anyhow. We do a baby wearing on Wednesdays to learn how to use your own wrap, because we know all the benefits of baby wearing.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't even know.
You guys have so much. You can go to your website is HH, tell, do you know what it is?
hhhomebirth.com.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, we're just Holistic Heritage Home Birth. We probably have the most, I'm on there all the time.
Okay, there you go. So you guys can definitely find them that way too. Okay, can I do the drawing? Go
Go
ahead.
get a consultation with them. The moment I met you guys, I knew
Yep.
you were gonna be my midwife.
She
So,
did.
so
And she
happy.
did a lot of research. Are you gonna spin?
Okay, so I'm gonna, let me share my screen really quick. We'll do the giveaway very quickly.
And what we're giving away is Anime's Guide to Childbirth.
So I was actually gonna
Oh, that's
say,
a good one.
there's either, I'm gonna give the option to the person who wins. They can
Okay.
either pick an Anime's Guide or they can pick hypnobirthing. So
Okay.
they
All right.
can choose, and I'll send you whichever one you would like. Okay. Michelle.
All right. Do you know Michelle?
I know Michelle.
Okay. All right. Yay. Y'all connect then. Congratulations, Michelle.
That's really cool. You gave that book away. I didn't get to talk about, like, you know, I talked about my journey of how I'm a midwife, but typically I tell people like what makes me human because I'm a person outside of midwifery. Imagine that. But one of my like cool little details is my boob is in one of Ina May's books.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's this boob.
That one. Okay. All right, guys, we understand if you have to go, and Andie, even if you have to go, that is perfectly okay. We totally understand. But I definitely want Kenna to get a chance to share her experience with you because she has had an experience with you, and she's had an experience not with you guys. So I definitely want her to share. And then if anybody else wants to hang out and share or ask questions, please feel free to hang out.
Anybody who needs to hop off, we totally understand.
Go
This
ahead.
is not
I
a
do.
lot.
I'm going to say goodbye. My kids
Thank
are
you,
all
Andie.
eating.
Thank
Bye.
you. Appreciate you so much.
Andie. I
Thank you
appreciate
for
Of
joining
course.
us.
Bye.
you guys.
Bye.
So, and since we're still live on Facebook, anybody can hear, but I just
Is
from
that
the
okay? Do you
moment,
want me to, are you okay being live on Facebook?
yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
From the moment I interviewed Jaelin and Andie, I knew I was going to hire them because they were just so like loving and caring. And we talked a lot about consent on this call. From the very first appointment I had with them, they ask you if they can feel your stomach, and they ask you for consent about everything. They never tell you what they're going to do. They always ask, is it all right if I whatever? And I just, at first I thought that was a little strange, but it's just because it was not what I was used to. But I got used to it, obviously, and it was so it was so empowering to know that from the beginning, it didn't matter what I wanted. It was what I wanted and not what my care provider thought was best. But sorry guys, but along my whole pregnancy, I really built a relationship and trust with Jaelin and Andie, so that when it came time during the birth, if there was something that needed to be done or they were recommending or they were asking if they could do, if I didn't know what was going to be the best option, I knew if they had a recommendation that I could trust them. Whenever I was in the hospital with my first, I used a midwife, but it was a hospital birth, and she would tell me what we were going to do and if she would tell me I was going to, like, we had to do something, I didn't know any better, and I didn't really trust her, but she was my doctor, not my doctor, but my midwife. So I just thought that's what you have to do. But there came a time, like when I was in labor with Aria, that Jaelin had asked me if I wanted to have a check, like a cervical check, and they don't really do those super routinely. So I knew if she was asking, I really trusted her, and I'm really glad it did. And of course, if anybody wants like my full birth story, I'm happy to share. But it would be a lot to go over now. But they are just so on your team. Olivia was a C-section, Aria was a VBAC at home, and you can have a VBAC at home. A lot of doctors don't think you can or don't think you should, or they try to scare you out of it, but you totally can. And it's a lot safer to have a VBAC than it is to have a repeat C-section. And Jaelin and Andie are rooting for you. They want you to have a successful home birth. They want you to have a successful VBAC. They don't want you to have to transfer. They don't want you to have a birth that you don't want. So I just had a really loving and caring relationship with them. And even to this day, when I had my appointments were over and Aria had passed her 6 weeks, like I was so sad that I didn't have to see them every week anymore because I love them so much.
It's beautiful. Does anybody have any other comments or questions or anything they'd like to share, either on Facebook or on Zoom? And of course, as Kenna said, if you want to know more, talk to her. Nikki, call Kenna. I really want you to call Kenna.
I think Bianca is on here, B. Gilmore. I'm pretty sure that's
okay.
Bianca. She had said, I think you said that somewhere up there that you were afraid of something. oh, your high risk diagnosis is to possibly get more from insurance. You said that's how you feel right now. I'm not sure if you're referring to a current or previous pregnancy, but if you are pregnant and you want to explore the option of home birth, I know Jaelin and Andie and others, but I just love Jaelin and Andie so much. But midwives are accepting late transfers because they know that a lot of people are being put in positions that they are not comfortable with. Okay, you're pregnant right now. Congratulations. It doesn't matter how far along you are. There was a girl who's 37 weeks, 2 weeks ago. So at 35 weeks, she switched to home birth. So it doesn't mean you can't. If you want to, you should.
Absolutely. Yes. All right, I think that's my cue. I'm up for another conversation here in a couple minutes. So I think we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank you all for everybody who tuned in. Just so you know, heads up everybody, next Thursday, we're not doing a 1 p.m. call. We're doing an 8 o'clock at night call. And that's because the person who's speaking, which I also think is a very relevant and timely topic, cannot be here with us until 8 p.m. And it's a teacher / homeschool mom who is going to be sharing about the option to homeschool, because I know a lot of people are questioning themselves about options for that right now. What do I do? Do I do the distance learning or do I homeschool? So she's going to talk to you all about the ins and outs of homeschooling and how to set yourself up for success with distance learning too, but also empower you to make the choice to homeschool now, or even that it's okay if you start distance learning and you want to switch to homeschooling, that you can do that. So join us next week. That's going to be Paula Snow. Make sure you're a part of all our event pages. Follow us on YouTube and stay tuned. We're going to bring you lots more. And thank you for joining us. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.